Tonight, you will check your phone for the 47th time today. You will scroll through a feed of faces you barely know, videos you will forget in seconds, and news that makes you anxious for reasons that make no sense. And in that small, quiet moment of hesitation, you might notice a strange emptiness. A feeling that you are doing nothing important, that you are wasting time, that you should be productive. But here is the twist that will change how you see every idle moment from now on. That guilt you feel. It is a glitch in your operating system. It is not a moral failure. It is not a sign of laziness. It is a signal that your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do millions of years ago. You are not broken. You are just bored in the wrong way. To understand why you cannot stop thinking about what your ancestors did all day, you have to first throw away the textbook image of the Stone Age. In school, you were probably taught that prehistoric life was nasty, brutish, and short. You were told that cavemen spent every waking hour hunting mammoths, running from saber-toothed tigers, and scraping by on the edge of starvation. If that were true, your ancestors would have had no time to be bored. They would have had no time to think about anything other than immediate survival. And if they had no free time, they certainly would not have invented the complex rituals, art, and social games that archaeologists have found buried in caves for thousands of years. The reality is far more complicated and far more interesting than the survival hustle myth. The truth is that for about 80% of human history, our ancestors were not constantly running for their lives. They were hunter-gatherers, yes, but they were also highly efficient ones. By studying modern hunter-gatherer groups like the Kung San of the Kalahari Desert and the Hadza of Tanzania, researchers have discovered something shocking. These people, who live much as our ancestors did, do not work nearly as hard as you might think. They spend only about 4 to 6 hours a day on the actual business of obtaining food. That is it, 4 to 6 hours. The rest of the day, they sit around. They talk, they play, they groom each other, they tell stories. They do absolutely nothing of what we would call productive labor. And here is the most important part. They are not starving. They are not stressed out of their minds. They are well-fed, healthy, and surprisingly relaxed. This discovery was popularized by anthropologists like Richard Lee, who studied the Kung San in the 1960s and found that they often returned from the bush with more food than they could eat. This challenges the deep-seated cultural belief that humans are meant to be busy. We live in a world that equates worth with output. If you are not producing, you are failing. But your brain was not built in an office. It was built on the savannah, under a vast open sky, with no deadlines and no bosses. When you sit down to do nothing, your brain does not shut off. It switches into what neuroscientists call the default mode network. This is a specific set of brain connections that light up when you are not focused on the outside world. It is the network responsible for daydreaming, for remembering the past, for imagining the future, and for making sense of who you are. For your ancestors, this default mode network was not a waste of time. It was essential. Think about it. If you are a hunter-gatherer and you have just spent 4 hours tracking a deer, the next thing you need is not another hunt. You need to process what happened. You need to think about where the herd moves next season. You need to plan the social dynamics of your group. You need to reinforce the bonds that keep you alive. This mental processing happens in the idle moments. It happens when you are staring at a fire or walking slowly through the trees. It is in these moments of boredom that creativity is born. It is in these moments that you solve the problems that kept you up at night. But here is where it gets strange. Your ancestors did not just idle away the hours in silence. They filled their time with activities that seem pointless to us. They painted caves. They carved figurines. They danced for hours. They told elaborate myths. Why? Because play is not just for children. Play is a way of exploring possibilities without real-world consequences. It is a mental simulator. When your ancestors spent hours gossiping or joking around, they were practicing social intelligence. They were strengthening alliances. They were learning about the world. This is why you feel restless when you have nothing to do. Your brain is craving that same kind of engagement. It wants to process. It wants to create. It wants to connect. But in the modern world, we have removed the natural outlets for this energy. We have replaced the campfire with the smartphone. We have replaced the long walk with the car ride. We have replaced the idle afternoon with a schedule packed with meetings and obligations. And when we finally do get a moment of silence, we panic. We reach for our phones because we are terrified of being alone with our thoughts. But those thoughts are not empty. They are the same thoughts that kept your ancestors sane and connected for hundreds of thousands of years. When you stop thinking about what your ancestors did all day, you are actually stopping the most important work your brain can do. Consider the work of psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, who studied the concept of flow. He found that people are happiest not when they are relaxing passively, but when they are fully engaged in a challenge that matches their skills. Your ancestors found this flow in hunting, in cooking, in storytelling, and in social bonding. Today, we often find it in work or hobbies. But the modern world has also created a new kind of flow, one that is shallow and distracting. Scrolling through social media gives you tiny hits of dopamine, but it does not engage your default mode network. It does not let your brain wander and connect ideas. It keeps you in a state of constant, low-level stimulation that prevents deep thinking. This is why you can spend 3 hours on your phone and feel like you have accomplished nothing. You have not been idle. You have been occupied. There is a huge difference. Idle time is not the absence of activity. It is a different kind of activity. It is the mental equivalent of cleaning out a closet. You have to let the dust settle to see what is really there. When you allow yourself to be bored, you give your brain the space to reorganize your memories, to solve emotional problems, and to generate new ideas. This is why some of your best insights come to you in the shower, or while driving, or while lying in bed. Your conscious mind has stepped away from the problem, and your subconscious mind has taken over. This is the default mode network doing its job. It is working on your behalf, even when you think you are doing nothing. So the next time you feel guilty for wasting time, remember your ancestors. They did not waste time. They lived in a world where time was not a resource to be managed, but a landscape to be experienced. They had all day to think, to dream, and to connect. They did not need to optimize every second. They trusted their brains to know what to do with the silence. You can do the same. You do not need to fill every moment with productivity. You do not need to turn every break into an opportunity to learn or improve. Sometimes the most productive thing you can do is nothing at all. Your brain is not a machine that needs to be constantly fed input. It is an organ that needs space to breathe. When you give it that space, you are not being lazy. You are being human. You are honoring the ancient rhythm of your species. You are letting your mind do the work it evolved to do. So put down the phone. Look away from the screen. Let your thoughts wander. You might be surprised by where they take you. You might find that the answers you have been looking for were waiting for you in the quiet all along. Tonight, when you check your phone for the 47th time, pause for just 1 second. Ask yourself if you are avoiding boredom or if you are truly busy. Then try something radical. Try doing nothing. Just sit. Just breathe. Just be.